Hey, it's Phil from Under the Crossbones here, and episode 200. Holy cow, man, we made it. Can't believe it. It's fantastic. I've got a great special surprise guest for you today that you're going to hear about in a few minutes. And if you, I also have some very, very important news about the show itself. So if you normally skip over that whole introduction section and jump right to the interview, I understand. It's fine. Whatever. Today, I want you to listen in, okay? I got some important stuff to tell you about, and it's going to be worth your while. So let's do that. And here we go, episode 200. Turn it up, swashbucklers! You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 200. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show and the ship's glutton each and every week. Brought to you today by Scuba Wise and Pirate Radio, The Treasure Coast. So here we are, episode 200. How amazing. Thank you for, if you're new to the show, thank you for coming in. If you've been with the show since episode 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, thank you for hanging in there with me the whole time. It's been like 4 years now doing this. This is craziness, 200 episodes. And I appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate you doing all the, the sharing and all the things that you do. And I appreciate it every time you listen to the show very, very much. So fun fact, a couple of them actually, to celebrate episode 200. In the year 200, the world human population reached 257 million. Now that is the population of present-day Indonesia. So that's not a lot of people, 257 million. Here's another fun fact. A cholesterol level of 200 and below is what you want to have. It's desired level for corresponding to lower risk for heart disease. So keep that cholesterol below 200. And 200 is the number of races or the number of NASCAR Cup Series races, I should say. I'll be specific. Won by Richard Petty. Yeah, the legend Richard Petty, if you follow NASCAR, which I don't, but even I know the guy's name, so there we are. If you're enjoying the show, come join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones. On Twitter, we're at undercrossbones, know the. And make sure that you're subscribed in whatever podcast app you're listening to right now. Just click that little subscribe button. It's free, and it just means you get each new show each and every week on Tuesday as soon as it comes out. All right, so of course, all the show notes for this episode will be at underthecrossbones.com/200 for 200. So let's get into it. I got good news for you, I have bad news for you, and I have good news for you. All right? Let's start with the good news. The good news is today's surprise guest for episode 200 is Bennerson Little. Yeah. Oh, man, so many people have been asking, when is Ben going to be back on the show? We think he's a super interesting dude. We love his books, all this kind of stuff. So you guys asked, so Bennerson Little is on the show today, and he is our surprise guest. We're going to talk about his latest books. We're going to talk about some thoughts on the publishing industry, his thoughts on pirate myth-busting. We're going to talk about his years growing up in Japan and the U.S. South. Oof, there's a culture shock for you, huh? We're going to talk about what he's doing now in the fencing world, things like that. So we're going to do a big old catch-up with Bennerson Little, and that's coming up first. So the bad news, let's hold off on the bad news for a second. Let me get the sponsor read out of the way first, and then we'll talk some bad news and good news, all right? So don't be bummed. We're sponsored today by Scuba Wise Treasure Expeditions, Sunken Treasure Workshop. This is the experience of a lifetime, and you really should do it. If you have even remotely any interest in this, you should absolutely do this. You're going to spend the day with world-renowned treasure hunters in the Florida Keys, learning how to find sunken treasure on the 1733 fleet of Spanish galleons. How often do you get that offer in life? Okay? Let me tell you, it is very reasonably priced. This is eminently doable. It's the trip is family friendly, scuba, snorkel. You can just come for the boat ride if you don't even want to get in the water. That might be me if I did it. I don't you know me. We've talked about water. You're going to explore real sunken Spanish galleons. You're going to see cannons, all sorts of good stuff. They got a variety of ways for you to participate, and it's a fantastic looking trip. Your hosts, Captain Carl Fismer, a world-renowned treasure hunter and kind of the real-life Indiana Jones, if we think about it. You heard him back in episode 108 of this show here. Captain Bradley Williamson, who you heard in episode 181, and you've also seen him on Expedition Unknown on the Travel Channel. Both those guys are going to be there hosting you, along with dive master Mark Littleton. And Mark has 35 years experience recovering artifacts from ships like the Andrea Doria and the Pinta and loads more. These dudes know what they're doing, and it's not going to be just take you out, float you around in the water, and call it a day. No. They're going to show you some real skills. You're going to learn how to even find shipwrecks of your own to salvage, and the legalities, how to navigate all that legal spectrum of how to do that. They're going to show you all about the technology that goes into wreck diving, and if you want to really go deep, they're going to show you how to find the funding, how to find the money to start your own wreck diving projects. How cool is that? And the price is so low. They should be charging way more for this. You're also going to get, of course, pictures of your trip included for free, a certificate of completion, and some new friends that will last a lifetime. So go to underthecrossbones.com/scuba. That is underthecrossbones.com/scuba to find out more. They'll even give you a free treasure map just for checking them out. All right. So go to underthecrossbones.com/scuba and sign up for the Scuba Wise Sunken Treasure Workshop right now. Okay. So bad news and good news. You ready? So as of episode 204, today we're in episode 200. As of episode 204, a month from now, that is going to be my last show as host of this show. It is time for me to step down for a variety of reasons. There is going to be a new host. The show is going to continue on, so you will get to continue to listen to this show in a very entertaining fashion with lots of new people and a new host, and it's going to be great, okay? But for a lot of reasons, it's time for me to step down. I have there's so many things I want to do with this show that I've simply not had time to do. To grow this and do it in a bigger fashion. I've wanted to do live events and bonus episodes and t-shirts and all sorts of great stuff. However, I only have so many hours in my week. And as you know from all my yakking over the last 4 years, this is not the only thing that I do. I'm a comedian. I'm a musician. I'm a music teacher. I travel a lot. And looking at my list of projects over the last couple years has shown me that something had to give, something had to go from the schedule. And unfortunately, this project is going to be it. And that makes me sad. I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed meeting and talking with all the guests on the show, meeting and talking with listeners out at various events and places. You guys are so great. But I have so many projects coming up. I have a comedy special that's going to be released later in the year that we're filming next month. I have a book to finish. I've got new shows to write. I've got some international traveling coming up. There's so much going on that I had to open up some hours in the week in order to make that happen. This show, this little 45 minutes to an hour that you listen to once a week, takes roughly 6 to 10 hours to produce, and that is booking the guests, recording the interviews, doing the editing, finishing up the episode, this part that I'm doing now, doing all the editing and the posting and the promotion, and it's like a part-time job. And as much as I love doing it, that is a large chunk of time during the week that unfortunately has to be partitioned off in other ways now. Okay, but like I said, I've had so much fun doing it, and I'm gonna miss it. And this will not be my last podcasting venture. I can nearly guarantee that I will be starting some other sort of podcast at some point in the future. That's an easy promise to keep, I guess, because I've been very vague about it. I don't know what it'll be about or when it will be or anything like that, but I hope you'll follow me along and, into the other things that I'm doing. I hope if you've enjoyed my work on this show, I hope that you will follow me into the worlds of comedy and music and writing and all the other things that I do, because I would love to have you there. I like you guys. You're fun people. So the new host for the show, who will be starting with episode 205, is going to be Nick Hoffman. Now, you've heard Nick on this show before. We did a full interview with Nick back in episode 40, way early in the show, and he's also been a co-host on some of my recent episodes here. So, Nick is funny. He's got good questions. He's going to do a great job with the show, and I'm very happy to hand it over to him. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. Will he make some changes to the show? I assume he will. I know he will. We're going to talk about it more, and he and I are going back and forth now, transferring assets, and I'm teaching him the ropes of how to be a podcaster and all the technical details that go into it. And so, ironically, right now, it's taking up even more time than usual to hand over the show to Nick. But it's going to be great. We've got another month to go on the handover stuff, and he is going to do a fantastic job. We will probably record a short little episode of just me and Nick talking about what his plans for the show are. I think that would be fun for you guys to hear. And so that will be coming soon, sometime in the next month, okay? But like I said, I've got 4 more episodes, 4 more interviews already in the can that I think are a nice cross-section of the stuff that we've done on this show over the last 4 years. So those will be fun. I'll tell you about those later on in the show, who's coming up next. So you got me for another month, and then Nick is going to pick up the mantle. I'm going to pass him the torch. I don't know. Do we pass the torch on a pirate show? Do we pass the lit cannon? Let's pass the lit cannon. I think that'll be more fun. And Nick Hoffman will be taking it over from there. And I will pop up from time to time, probably, because some of those projects on my list are pirate-centric projects. So whenever I have one of those, you can be darn well sure that I will pop up on the show to tell you about them. But meanwhile, tour dates, lots of tour dates coming up because I am prepping for my comedy special taping in August. So we're just under a month away from that, and that is taking up a lot of my brain space. But I'm working out the gear, working out the jokes, working out the material. On the July 27th, I'll be at Ale Industries in Oakland, California. On the 30th, I'll be at the Milk Bar in San Francisco, California. August 2nd at the All Out Comedy Theater in Oakland, California. August 8th at Sally Tomatoes, Rohnert Park, California. August 6th is Sally Tomatoes. August 8th is Clandestine Brewing in San Jose, California. August 9th at the Folktale Winery in Carmel, California. That looks like a great show. August 10th at Seven Sisters in San Luis Obispo, California. So you Mid-Coast guys, come on out and see that one. And then August 11th at Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco, California. August the 14th at Art Boutique in San Jose, California. Headlining that night in my hometown. Boy, that doesn't happen very often. That's going to be a fun one. And then August the 16th, Friday, August the 16th, the Comedy Palace in San Diego. 2 shows, filming the special that night. And it's going to be amazing. Go to philjohnsоncomedy.com/San Diego for tickets and use the code PHIL50 for half off tickets. The code is PHIL50, PHIL50. And that gets you 50% off your tickets for the shows at the Comedy Palace on August 16th. We're going to put it all on film that night. Looking out into the future, October 10 to 12, I will be at the Laugh-In Comedy Club in Fort Myers, Florida. For all you Florida pirates who are going to be there, if those dates sound familiar, yeah, it's because it's the same weekend as the Fort Myers Pirate Festival. We plan that, yes. So I will be hanging around the festival. Come say hi, and I won't be doing this show by then, but that's okay. You can come say hi anyway. We're still friends. So I'll be hanging around the Fort Myers Pirate Festival, October, which I think is October 11 to 12. October 10 to 12, I will be headlining at the Laugh-In Comedy Club in Fort Myers, Florida. So come on out after you've had your day in the sun playing with the pirates. Come laugh at some jokes, okay? Okay. All right. Let's see. If you want to support the show in other ways, you can do that. Go to underthecrossbones.com/support. There's a little PayPal box there where you can drop a donation in. There's an Amazon banner. You click that Amazon banner, buy yourself something nice from Amazon. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but Amazon kicks us back a few shekels here at the show to help keep the old boat afloat. And if you want to be a sponsor of the show, like Scuba Wise or Pirate Radio The Treasure Coast, or any of the other great sponsors we've had over the years, you can find out more information about that too. And Nick will be the guy helping you out with that. So it's going to be all good. All right. So, boy, that was a lot. But here we are. It's episode 200. We made it. I definitely wanted to get this far with the show, and I'm very excited that we have. So let's jump in. Benderson Little's here, and we're going to find out all about what he's up to and do some pirate talking. All right, here it is. Benderson Little. Enjoy. Here we are, episode 200. You were last on episode 36. So for the last 164 episodes, people have been asking me, when is Benderson Little going to be on the show again? Because they find you fascinating. So welcome back to the show, Ben.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it first time.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So in the time since we've talked, you put out a book called The Golden Age of Piracy, The Truth Behind Pirate Myths. So tell me a little bit about that book and what it's all about.
Some quick background on it, a little bit of background on publishing as well. Publisher of How History's Greatest Pirates, blah, 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 kind of a popular, easy-read coffee table book on a number of pirates I'd written. They wanted me to do a follow-on book, and I suggested Pirate Myths because I had a massive amount of information on the subject derived from researching all my other books. So I put that together for them. We had some kind of head-knocking going on, a few disagreements. They wanted standalone chapters, like, so that people literally just could pick up any chapter and read it out of context. I ended up going along with that. I didn't care for it. But shortly after I submitted the manuscript and got paid for the book, it was about to head to production. They were picked up by another publisher who dropped their entire history line and left me with the manuscript in my hand. So I shopped it around, got it into an agent's hand. He ended up eventually selling it. But the first thing he said when he looked at the manuscript was, these chapters aren't connected. And I said, this is why. I said, I disagree with that, but I can fix that very quickly. So I went back and basically reorganized the chapters and put it more or less in the fashion that I had wanted it originally. I didn't do a complete rewrite because that would have taken me months more, but I rearranged it, rewrote, made quite a few revisions. But the basic purpose of the book was to try to expose in as narrative a fashion as I could a lot of our misconceptions about piracy. In spite of the romance of piracy, which is what people tend to fixate on, we have a lot of misconceptions about them too. We tend to look at the bright side, much of which is actually cultural and has been created by novelists, Hollywood, television shows now with Black Sail, for example. And I really, really just wanted to try to put a certain balance to this while not detracting from the romance. The mere fact of adventure at sea is romantic. And for me, that's sufficient. But I've long wanted to follow. Let me put this another way real quick. I basically discovered there's two kinds of researchers or historians or scholars in history. There are the ideologues on one side. They have a certain hypothesis or a set of beliefs. They could be pirates as Marxists, or pirates as communists, or pirates as true free enterprise capitalists, or pirates as rebels against empire, kind of the Star Wars theme. Sure. And then there are those who say, here's the facts, and we're just going to follow them and then try to come to a conclusion about them by looking at the facts first. Right. And tended to butt heads a lot with the ideologues. They're the ones that tend to give me bad reviews of the books, while the especially the scholars who like to follow facts, these are often geographers, marine archaeologists, others like that, tend to give very, very good reviews on the book. And I'm already starting to lose my I'm already starting to forget where we started on this.
Well, we were just talking about the book, but I think that's it's to the point of, if you're pleasing everybody, then you're probably doing something wrong. And I look at any sort of art like that, where if everybody likes it, then it's probably not that interesting to begin with.
Well, I agree with that entirely. And one thing ever since I was a kid, I should have learned my lesson about, or at least getting as close to the truth as we can. In fact, I should have learned my lesson in, I think it was 5th grade. I won't go into too much detail here. I'm actually writing a fictionalized account of the year I spent in the very deep South. Oh, okay. My parents are from the South, but my father was in the Navy, and so I didn't grow up in the South. My parents were very open-minded, and we just spent 2 years in Japan. My father was being deployed overseas. Aboard the aircraft carrier USS Constellation. It was likely that the deployments were going to be extended, so they thought it would be a great idea and inexpensive as well for us to move back to their hometown, or at least the county seat, Butler County, South Alabama. So It was culture shock for me. Yeah. Big time culture shock. And I could talk about that later, but it was part of the inspiration for my love of piracy. I had an aunt give me a copy of Treasure Island, which kind of kept me sane. Like I said, it was a culture shock for me, my background. But I remember they had a speech contest, and I love, that the Daniel Boone TV show. A lot of listeners are probably not familiar with it. It's before their time, but it was Seth Parker who played Daniel Boone. He wore his coonskin cap and all this, and I loved that show, but I thought, this copy of Treasure Island I had was annotated, and I thought this was wonderful. It's actually telling you what things were right and what were wrong and what the reality was. And I thought, well, I'm going to do this with Daniel Boone. I'm going to see what the reality was. So I got whatever sources I could out of the library, the usual biographies, and discovered that it was nothing like what on the TV show. Sure. And so the speech was good. I got to go to the region where I lost, of course. But one thing I remember was students, especially boys, sitting in that classroom as I had to give my speech for the first time. They were, every one of them, shaking their heads. I was wrong. Daniel Boone did not wear a black felt hat. He wore a coonskin cap. He didn't do this and that. He did these other things. He was everything the TV show said. And I run into this a lot, even today, if not change people's minds, at least open their minds to certain, the subject of piracy or anything for that matter. Sure. It is very, very difficult. You have a lot of people, whether it's something simple as a pirate fan, who are on the ideologue side of the camp. They have decided what pirates are, and it is virtually impossible to change that. You can dump the cardinal sin in writing about piracy, or probably any other popular subject, is to bust the myth. You can be as factual as you want. You should go as deeply as you want into the subject, present as much new information as you want, but don't disturb people's, romantic notions of
Sure.
what pirates are. So
Right.
there's a certain part of the audience who will immediately lose at that. But again, as you said, and I agree with this entirely, is that if you're pleasing everybody, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, you cannot write to please everybody. I've also tried to toe the line between trying to please an academic audience and trying to please a general audience, and that is also very, very difficult to do.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It's not quite impossible, but you're not going to please. Again, going back to basically, you can't please ideologues or their academics or their just popular readers if you're going against their core beliefs, and they will challenge them, refuse to believe them, write bad reviews, which, by the way, are usually hilarious. I've often thought about just creating a webpage and posting, these reviews, because they're actually funny to read. I'm sure the reviewers thought that they were being very serious and stern, and people actually listen to them, but most people don't even read the reviews, but some of them they're funny enough that you could probably do a whole comedy set on it.
Yeah, probably.
Like that.
They're pretty amazing. The people that feel they need to take the time to do that. So I have to backtrack here for a second. So you said before you moved back to Alabama with your parents, you were in Japan just before that?
Yeah, my father was stationed at the Yokosuka Naval Station there for 2 years.
Okay.
Previous to that, he had been with the Pacific Fleet Combat Camera Group, had been in Vietnam, I think a couple of tours there, and then we all moved to Japan. And then after that, which was a wonderful place, by the way. I loved being in third and fourth grade. And that if I finished the fact-based novel about my year in Alabama, I'd probably write a prequel to that covering those 2 years in Japan. It was literally like a Miyazaki film, looking back on it.
Huh.
Now, it's fascinating.
That's amazing. I can't think of a larger cultural jump than going from Japan to Alabama.
And the 2 years previous to that were in Southern California. So you kind of see my perspective there. And then going in the late 60s to South Alabama at the height of the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War.
Sure. Wow.
A very different world. And Treasure Island really did help me. That and the 40 acres my grandparents lived on that my father owned, or my parents owned, really helped me, escape from a lot of that and deal with that fairly significant culture shock.
Sure. Yeah. Now, would you say that being able to escape into Treasure Island like that, was it the romance and simplicity of those pirate characters that helped you in a time like that?
It was. I think it was just this entire idea of just setting out on an adventure. And remember that except for Long John Silver, who's actually a pretty murderous character,
sure.
And been kind of the father figure for Jim Hawkins. He's kind of like that corrupt uncle. We all have. The pirates were the bad guys, but it was, Jim Hawkins, this kid about my age probably, setting out on his own, on this island and trying to take matters into his own hand in a world that he really kind of doesn't have a lot of control in. And I saw a lot of myself in that. And like I said, I had that 40 acres and beyond that I could go visit my grandparents and explore all I wanted in. And I'd learned a lot. It was a very common edition. It was grocery store editions of classics, but they were annotated. And I know today a lot of the annotations weren't correct. I actually have the book framed in a 3-year-old's room. But just the idea of taking literature and reading an adventurous story, but then being able to apply it directly to reality, too, to try to apply it to my circumstances, but also take a look at a lot of the facts and things and try to understand what life was like back then and compare it with today. I've never been one who really wants to go dress up and play pirate.
Uh-huh.
I've been more interested in what goes on in your head when you're doing these things. It's not that I don't have black powder arms. I did a lot of research on those for Sea Rovers practice, literally put hundreds of rounds through a replica Fusil Buccaneer.
Uh-huh.
But I guess what I'm trying to say, if you want to be a sea roving adventurer today, go be a Navy SEAL or go join the Coast Guard, or there's all kinds of things that you can do to put yourself in a familiar environment.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, that book really did. It opened my mind to a lot of things. A few years later, I think I was probably 13 at a school book fair. Little paperback copy, I still have it too, of Captain Blood by Raphael Sabatini. And that also, in similar ways, kind of opened my mind to a lot of things. Yes, you should study languages. You should use your wits. You can behave like a gentleman, but you don't have to be a weakling.
Uh-huh.
You can, that your intellect is as important as your physical skills, things like that. And you can go out and life's not perfect and there's injustices, but you can get out and do your best to fight against them. You won't win all the battles, but you can win a lot of them, things like that. So for me, they were probably two books that really got me very much interested in piracy, although it was really more of an accident that I ended up writing books on it. It's fiction has always been, which is terribly difficult to get published. It's always been my primary interest. So I was doing a lot of background research, thinking I'd write swashbucklers. And then when I was in the Navy, in a Navy SEAL, I immediately noticed a lot of tactical similarities, and I'd been reading journals and original accounts for years, just kind of put all this material together and ended up writing my first book on the subject. And from there, I kind of got, I won't say stuck, but there's a lot of things to write about on the subject. So I kept researching and writing on the subject, and it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you have written some fiction. You have Fortune's Whelp out, which is the first in a series. Tell me about. I read a little bit about what happened is happening with the second book in that series, but let's let everybody in on that story because it's pretty interesting.
Well, I've written the second series, and a problem. Well, I think it's more of a problem today with publishing than it has been in the past. Let me put it this way. I'm always leery about signing on to small publishers. They can tend to go out of business. A lot of them try to defer the cost of publishing onto the writer, which is not what legitimate publishers do. And when Fortune's Whelp was published, I had no problems with that. They went through the standard editorial process. They weren't asking me for any money up front or anything, which I would have walked away from immediately. And were presenting themselves basically as a small, legitimate press trying to get a start, heavy emphasis on ebooks, but they were also going to print trade paper copies. And that worked fine. I thought some red flags popped up during the editorial editing process. I'll digress for a very brief second on something. A few years ago, I read an article about a lot of TV shows that said that while they may be popular, they're not realistic. And this is because the writers are basically writing about people as if reality is television. You see this in a lot of films too. And this is a real problem in a lot of historical fiction because even a lot of the authors are not actually historians. And when they are, it tends to be superficial. But during the editing process, early red flags, I hate the word expert, but strictly speaking, I'm a subject matter expert. When somebody starts challenging me on things I know for a fact, or events that not only do I know they occurred historically, but have occurred to me personally, and telling me that's not how things work, it pops into my head immediately that these people have been reading too much bad historical fiction or writing it, apparently. So and soon after that, there was some other red flags popping up. I noticed that their marketing was primarily headed toward bloggers and things like that, as opposed to trying to get the books into some of the more major reviewers. And then I started seeing suggestions that authors pay Amazon to market books, things like that. And this is listeners need to understand this is not what legitimate publishers do.
Right.
If publisher of Golden Age of Piracy wants to promote an ebook on BookBub or anything like that, there are fees for that. The publisher pays those fees. They don't even consider asking the author to do that. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Publishers covers all that kind of marketing things. And I started seeing these things up, and I was not going to participate in them because that's not what the publishers do. But anyway, I finished the second manuscript. Figured, well, I'll go ahead and give it a shot first and see what happens. And it kind of went downhill very quickly. The owner / editor / publisher immediately seemed to be asking if I had it edited yet. And he said, you haven't had it, have you? And I said, well, no, but that's not necessary. I said, that's what publishers do. And he tried to vehemently argue that they only copy edit. And this is just blatantly false. Okay, legitimate publishers, it's a two-pronged process. There's basically what you call your line editing, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of looking at the continuity of the book and making sure everything is there. And then they will usually have a copy editor run through, and that's just really doing little grammatical checks, things like that, typos, all that stuff. But this is flat out how publishers work. I mean, I had several books by three legitimate publishers prior to this. I know how it works.
Sure.
I know lots of authors. It's simply not debatable. And when I told him not only was that not true, but I was not going to pay for it under it, he just ended the phone call. So I don't know what the publisher's up to, if that's what they intended originally, and they just passed on all that to try to get me aboard with the first book, or what. They seem to be a type of small publisher that's cropped up recently that kind of quasi-legitimate, quasi-vanity. They're trying to get books that will actually sell.
Right.
but they're trying to push a lot of the expenses off onto authors. And aspiring writers need to know this is not how it works. I had a number of people kind of get very upset about that. I pointed out on Facebook, including Angus Constant, has written a number of books on piracy, well-known Scottish, former naval officer, well-known Scottish writer.
Uh-huh.
I won't repeat the things he said, but he was basically just saying, kick these guys in the pants, the polite version, kick these guys in the pants and tell them to go. That's one way to put it. And again, these are authors who've been around. They know this is nonsense. So historical fiction is difficult to get published. I'll consider down the road possibly, looking for a small publisher. I could publish it myself. But again, the marketing is very, very difficult. All self-publishing is very, you need to understand that publishers have access to a lot of marketing tools. It's very difficult for a self-published author to get access to. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm unwilling to commit, for example, to I like books that are in print, paper books.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to commit. I don't want to commit to an ebook publisher because the fact is, as far as I can tell, the majority of my readers like having a book they can read.
Sure.
They want a physical book. That's just the nature of the subjects that I'm writing about.
Yeah, it's
we'll see how it goes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's one of those things that unfortunately has followed from the music industry from so long ago, where the music industry started shifting a lot of those costs to the artists, even to they wouldn't even sign them until, well, we want to see that you've already got this huge following before we even sign you. And it kind of kicked them in their own head, because now artists don't even bother signing to those labels unless they're manufactured in some way, or it's just sort of old school. But most people are running self-publishing and things like that now, because for music artists now we have a lot of tools for the self-marketing and promotion and things like that. And then I've seen that slowly slipping into the comedy industry as well, and now also slipping into the book industry. So you can blame it all on the record labels.
That would not surprise me at all. I know that was a corrupt industry for a long, long time with scandal, and it's only seems to be getting worse. Now, like I said, I could always self-publish it. The difficulty there is there's still a little bit of the major publishers and agents will frown. They're doing it less now, but they kind of frown on authors who are self-published.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of ways, again, getting access to the market is prime because of the expense in publishing print copies, especially hardcovers, and even worse, getting them distributed. I don't know if you're listening to understand that the books they see in a bookstore, basically pretty much any book that makes it into a major chain, they have an agreement with the publisher or the distributor that for the books that don't sell after whatever period, publisher has to take them all back.
Right.
Okay. So that's quite an expense, and it's potential loss. It's one of the reasons that legitimate publishers, while they do all this editing and stuff for the author, they also take the lion's share of the sales too, because there's a great risk in there.
Of course. Yeah.
But you can debate on what the share should be, but when you have a small publisher who's basically trying to take the lion's share of the profits while shifting most of the financial burden over the writer, that's just simply wrong. And like I said, I'd rather self-publish it, which leads me to another point. My wife and I actually are setting up a small press right now. I haven't gone into the details of releasing. We haven't done any press releases or anything, and we don't quite have all the details formulated. But there's a couple of fiction titles that we're looking at closely that are probably popular enough that we'll plan on doing significantly annotated versions. Basically, what this means, we don't alter the text, but in the borders and in appendices, we talk about all kinds of things that the author touches on.
Uh-huh.
Kind of the Moby Dick technique, except you're not reading. I love that novel, by the way, but some people cannot stand reading through the background and everything. I love it. But this would be in the borders and your typical annotated book like that. And we're also looking at doing a series of some nonfiction, some of the old Buccaneer journals and things like that have not been well annotated.
Okay.
Buccaneers, that's right. So taking a look at those, but that's always a possibility that if we were to go self-publishing that way, if we could, get off the ground and get a small press going, that would be a possibility. But the traditional part of me always feels that that's kind of cheating in a way. But a lot of people are doing it now, because a fair number of them are doing it successfully too. So,
right. Yeah, so the stuff that you would be putting out, what kind of books would you be annotating? I mean, do you have any particular titles in mind?
Well, for the fiction, I do. I don't like that. I don't want to reveal them yet. I should say there are two books that are very near and dear to my heart, and one of them I have would be co-annotating it with an expert on the author who's a very close friend of mine. These are basically adventure / pirate buccaneering fiction, and the same thing starting off would be the areas which I have an expertise for the nonfiction. That would be, I wouldn't mind annotating, doing a very detailed, just Mellon's Buccaneers of America. There are numerous editions of that.
Sure.
A couple of editions I'd like to. They could be printed in small numbers, but it would help put everything in historical perspective and give readers tools and to enjoy the books a little bit more. But a number of journals, and that's probably where we'll get our start. Like I said, it's something I have expertise in. The books are all in the public domain.
Yeah.
But for the novels, we would definitely, I think, try to go with these deluxe, annotated, illustrated editions and go with Kickstarters on those because of the funding costs. But I think they would be popular enough, or at least we're going to find out over the next year.
Yeah, certainly. I think the Kickstarter is a great idea, especially when you've got some models to follow, like the Firelock Games guys have had some successful ones. I know you're working with them.
And I've actually been talking to them about this too for these as well, and either whether we might be teaming with them, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, or just tapping into their support because they have they have a beautiful deluxe rulebook edition that looks like an old sea journal. They've got some outstanding people on board for everything from illustrators to doing page layout, things like that, too, which we could tap into.
That's great. That sounds like a fascinating project. I'm really excited to see where that goes. Are you?
Yeah, and again, I would say this goes right back into books that inspired me, but also trying to publish books, or write books or publish books that I want to read but aren't really out there.
Sure. Yeah.
Rather than sign. That is something I've tried to do with these books on piracy. Is not 80 to 90% of books on piracy are basically retreads. They may retweak things a little bit, but you probably get a stack of books on piracy helping further the British Empire, or piracy against the Empire, or the themes are all pretty much the same. And every few years you get a book that pretty much covers the same subject. So the best books on the subject are that 10 to 15 or 20% that are trying to go into new territory.
Yeah.
On the different perspectives. But that said, you look at Hollywood. Sequel. People don't mind reading the same thing over and over and over again. They'll read 50 books on Blackbeard that all say the same thing because they like Blackbeard. You know?
I guess there's a certain comfort in that kind of stuff, because I know certainly that it's like going back to an old song that you like. I don't know how many times I can listen to an Aerosmith record and still enjoy it. So I kind of get that. But at the same time, when you're spending that much time reading a book, which is not a passive activity, I always want to learn something new. I want to find something new. And you're right. I see a lot of the same information comes around again and again and again. And you just go, okay, well, all right. I guess I'll just skim this one and get on to the next one. Hope there's something new. So I'm glad that you're trying to do those things. I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a market for it. If you look at romances or even genre fiction, all the different genres, often it is pretty much the same story with things tweaked just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's been a successful business model for a lot of writers.
Yep. Yeah. Do it again. Are you still fencing?
I am still probably teaching as much. I've kind of taken the last couple of months off since we have a newborn. Taking a little break from it. But yeah, I'm still teaching. How long? I've been fencing, I guess, about 42 years now, teaching about 22 years. And getting more and more as I get older, I'm more interested in teaching people so that they can enjoy fencing. I'm less interested in, trying to create that great fencer who's going to earn all medals, as opposed to basically doing what one of my fencing masters, who's an Olympic gold medalist, world championship medalist, Hungarian. Both my masters were Hungarian. They pointed out to me a few years ago when my wife and I were visiting him. I was telling him that a lot of our fences are basically recreational or quasi-competitive, which is perfectly fine. I get more I'm in tune with that. But I was saying that some of them it's difficult to get into competition, and he just literally, and I can't do his Hungarian accent, but he's like, Ben, no. He says, and this is coming from the Olympic gold medalist. He said, the most important thing about fencing, he said, is the camaraderie. That people get out, learn, enjoy the fencing,
Certainly.
Fence, have fun, and meet people, make friends, do things like that. So as I'm growing older, we're much, much more focused on that. The clubs I was in that I grew up in were always very Hungarian, European oriented anyway, which, the camaraderie was as important or more important than being a great fencer. Because everybody, if they can enjoy the sport, and most people can become pretty decent fencers. And that's lately a lot of what I've been focusing on, just trying to teach people. We haven't gone the route of, we're not a business, thankfully. We just bring in enough money to pay all of our bills and expenses. If you want to be a business, you basically have to teach kids, which means you have to put up with their often obnoxious parents. And we teach kids, but we don't focus on kids. We don't run a youth program. We integrate it with the adults. And it's unfortunate because there's a huge push in fencing right now to fencing as a business model, which means kids, because that's where the money is, which
sure.
fills up the USA fencing's coffers so they can pursue international medals, but it also pushes adults aside. And fencing for, I'd say, until maybe the last 10 or 15 years was dominated by adults, that sense of honor, and it's starting to see a lot of that diminish as these old fencing masters who had taught duels, like our first fencing master did, or who their own masters had taught duels, and this whole sense of it's an adult activity, and it's about honor as much as it is about winning. And you see a lot of that kind of diminishing right now. There's a heavy, heavy, heavy sports emphasis on it. And the more you bring kids into it and their parents into it, the more it becomes about winning and less about winning honorably, which I'm probably still old school and caught in the past. But my hopes that it will roll around eventually.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's also a lot of the same reasons that I mostly teach teenagers and adults in my music lessons, because the obnoxious parents can be interesting.
It doesn't have to be more than 1 in 5, but it's enough that you just don't want to deal with it. I had a year or two ago, one of the teenagers. We don't require lessons after beginning class. They're very, very useful. The best way to teach fencing is one-on-one, but we don't force that upon people, and I don't have time to give any lessons. There's actually demand. I've got some disgruntled fencers right now, so I've taken a couple of months off. But she brought her son in for a lesson, and at the end of the lesson, she was asking me why we don't have a youth program, and I'm not going to pull any punches on this. I was polite, but I told her exactly why, and I mentioned also, and I said, well, frankly, we really don't have to deal with parents are often obnoxious. We don't have to deal with that. We need to. And she just gave me a strange look and said, oh, it's the parents' fault. And I said, well, often it is. And we never saw it again. And that is perfectly fine. So I do have a problem with that because we just don't want that. We want people to get out and enjoy themselves. One of the virtues of fencing and fencing for adults that traditionally run is that we have a club of people across the political spectrum, all religions, races, socioeconomic status, political beliefs, and you don't really hear any discussions about that. People come out, they enjoy fencing, they enjoy being with each other. We have, we've got some hardcore liberals. I'm sure we've got some hardcore conservatives. We had a preacher, one of our fencers is a preacher in his 60s he's not the most athletic person in the world, but he just loves the sport. And something he pulled me aside and told me, he said, Ben, he says, I've been here a couple of years now, and he said, I've seen a lot of our fencers here get angry at each other. I mean, angry at themselves for their performances, but I've never seen them get angry at someone else, at another person. And that's because a lot of it has to do with those values. The old school Hungarians I learned from, Italo Fantelli is one of my fencing grandfathers. He was my first fencing. You can look him up on the internet. Famous old master. He was my first fencing master. And these old school masters, for example, the referee is cheating. Well, then you should get so good that he can't cheat against you. Okay, and that was their don't complain, get mad, get out there, come back, fence honorably, get revenge. Always fence. You're going to win, but you're going to win honorably within the rules. And, of course, now, one thing they had back in their day, if somebody's cheating out in a competition, you go call the guy out for a real deal afterward, I suppose, which we really don't have that opportunity these days. You do that, and besides it being illegal, they'll start calling lawyers and probably call you a bully, too, That's something I've always found remarkable. The person who's trying to screw you over, if I can say that on air, gets caught at it, and you get in their face about it, suddenly you're a bully. Right.
Yep. That's really interesting. Well, I'm glad you're taking that healthier outlook on it, and because the competition thing. I mean, even in a foundationally competitive activity like fencing, somebody's trying to win against the other person. But I find the same thing in music where people will come in and go, so how do we get my kid in piano competitions? I'm like, just don't. That's not what music's about. That's not what I'm going to teach them here. We're going to teach them to play music for the sake of playing music and enjoying it. So I like that viewpoint on it a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's now they're pushing kids into fencing and competition too early. It burns them out. It gives them bad habits. You know, I was taught don't even start teaching kids till they're 12, 13, 14. Don't let them compete for a minimum of a year or two, and only if they want to. And if you start kids earlier, like I could start my own children early in fencing, but I was adamantly told by both my fencing masters, and like I said, these were world-class fencing masters. First when they fought a duel, they were world-class fencers as well. Adamant about start them slowly, make it fun. Do not let them compete until they're at least in their early teens, and no sooner than that, because you'll ruin the sport for them. You'll ruin it, and that's what I see happening. The reality is, I'm getting a micro rant here, which is actually kind of associated with the book I'm writing right now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Even if you have the aptitude to be great as a musician or as a fencer or something, the chances are you're not going to get to the top because of logistics, because of luck, because of a lot of things. I was told that I had a lot of great aptitude for fencing. I went in the Navy and became a Navy SEAL and did things like that. You cannot pursue both of those activities at once. You know, I was more than willing to, and even if I had, you can't really tell how far you're going to go, but there's no reason to give it up. And the music, fencing, a lot of these things are being sold to parents as your kid can be great and will be great, which is, I put a lot of money into club volleyball. My daughters in high school, they enjoyed it, but even they are not so sure they would do it again. And honestly, with my two children growing up now, I really doubt that I'll put that kind of money into something like that, because it tends to burn your kids out.
Sure. Oh, yeah. They
really need to develop talent to get out and enjoy the sport or the activity or learning to play music. Exactly what you were saying. Get out, enjoy it, and if you get really good at it and you're lucky enough, that's great. In fencing, we went from 42 years ago from one nationals, which was adult, and then they had a junior Olympics program for youth, to there's at least 4 levels of nationals now for adults only. If you can't be great at the open, we'll create a lesser category so you have a better chance. And it's totally competition. Again, sorry, I'm getting off on a bit of a rant.
That's okay.
the subtitle of the next book, if I can get it sold, is the title is Blood's Buccaneers, but the subtitle is Riffs, Rants, and Reflections on Pirate History and Modern Culture. So I've kind of been in the mood for riffing and ranting and making as many connections between the past and the present as I can.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, actually. That sounds really fascinating.
Well, I'm taking the point of departure for the book is trying to find out. The novel Captain Blood was actually, the author was inspired by the legitimate brief journal of Dr. Henry Pittman, who was actually he treated wounded during the Monmouth Rebellion, Battle of Sedgemoor.
Okay.
Royalist and rebel. Of course, if you treat a rebel, you're a traitor, and he ended up getting transported for 10 years to Barbados. He escaped, met some pirates, got away. That was the inspiration for Captain Blood. Okay. Well, he was actually rescued from, his salt Tortuga, not pirate Tortuga, a different island, by some English buccaneers, and he was very circumspect about identifying the captain. Basically, he wouldn't tell his audience who he was because, well, the man was probably a legitimate private citizen somewhere, and piracy was illegal.
Right.
So I've been trying to track, using the starting point or the departure point of this book, to track down who this guy really was. I think I probably found him. Proving it made it a little more difficult, but I'm just using that as a starting point to basically run through, American colonial and piratical history and the creation of this novel as essentially a mean to riff, rant, and reflect on anything I want. Which is actually it's really, really easy to do, actually. They had lawyers back then. They had bad doctors back then. They had publishers messing over writers back then,
That sounds fascinating.
We'll see if we can find a publisher for it. I've written a couple of chapters of it. And again, this goes back to the audience, too. How much of the audience? There's the Moby Dick readers, and then there's the non-Moby Dick readers. There's readers who, I've had complaints about how history's greatest pirates because I would stop to explain certain things, and I've seen some readers just curious about that. I lost my place. Well, I was trying to educate you, and there are things called bookmarks, and you can go back to where you left off, and then they think you've insulted them if you say that. So I'm probably writing more for Moby Dick style readers than the make it simple, keep it linear type of reader.
Right. Well, this all sounds great, Ben, and I'm really excited to see all these different projects come to fruition. I think that's very cool. Where's the good place online for people to keep up with all the stuff that you're working on? BennersonLittle.com, although better is probably to go to my BennersonLittle.blog. Okay.
I do a lot of blogging. Again, I have all this extra material, so as often as I can, which right now it's not that often, I just kind of post. It's mostly associated with piracy, buccaneering, and things like that. But I do update blogs, put new blogs up periodically, correct the older blogs as I find more information. But either site is try to keep them updated with the latest news and everything. And there are links to the books and so forth there too.
Great. Fantastic. I'll get those in the show notes so everybody can keep up with so many great projects. I'm excited to see them all. I think it's really great. And thank you for coming on for episode 200. I really appreciate your time. Glad to have you back.
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
You bet. And there it is, friends. That is my talk with Bennerson Little. So exciting to have him back on the show, and I think a great way to celebrate 200 episodes, to dig back a little bit and find out what he's doing. Because, like I said, you guys have been asking for him since episode 35 or whatever it was when he was on. You guys have been like, when's Bennerson Little coming back? So I'm glad we got him back. That was a really fun talk and exciting to hang out and chat with him a little bit. You can find out more about what he's up to at BennersonLittle.blog or BennersonLittle.com. There's different stuff on each one of those sites, and so you can check all that out. I'll have links to some of his books and things like that in the show notes as well. Those are Amazon links. You click those, helps the show out, and we appreciate it. Also, we are sponsored today, of course, by Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music of today's hits and yesterday's classics. You can hear Under the Crossbones on there every Wednesday night at 10 p.m., of course. If you're listening there now, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. To listen, just go to pirateradioofTheTreasureCoast.com. And don't forget to download their app. That is the Pirate Radio WKKC-DB app from your favorite app store. You can even ask your Alexa or Google device, hey, Alexa, play Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, and she'll kick it on up for you. She might even add a little, here's your Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast. I don't think she'll do that. That would be cool if they did that. Get on that. Get on that, Amazon and Google. Add some pirate speak in there. To find out more about it and tune in and listen, just go to pirateradiooftheTreasureCoast.com. And that is our show for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. It's a bittersweet show, this episode 200. I'm excited to be here. Sorry I had to announce that I won't be here much longer, but Nick is going to do a fantastic job. I have absolute faith in him that you will love the show going on from here. Like I said, I've got some more episodes for you before you are completely rid of me. Next week, Guy Chet, the author of The Ocean is a Wilderness, will be here. So we're going to go deep into piracy and some real hardcore history, factual kind of. It's a good one. You're going to enjoy that one. The week after that, we're going to get goofy. Musical Blades will be here, and that episode is chaos. It's absolute chaos, and you're going to love it. It's super fun. The week after that, Rich Cohen, author of The Last Pirate of New York. If you have not read yet The Last Pirate of New York, it is a fascinating book. Rich Cohen is a great, interesting author, and you're going to really dig that one. And during that episode, we're going to have a copy of the book to give away as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And then after that, Lou Hernandez, a.k.a. Cutthroat Cortez of Pirates Plunder, will be on episode 204, which I think is going to be a fantastic way to take it out, because I think he's very emblematic of the pirate community around the world in a lot of really great ways. So again, if you want to find out more about what Bennerson Little is up to, go to BennersonLittle.blog or BennersonLittle.com. Stay tuned for much more from Under the Crossbones, both from me and from Nick, and some updates and some changes. And change is good, you guys. Change is good. See you next week.